Hi everybody, my name is Alisha. When you're telling a story, how do you make sure you always choose the right tenses? In this video, I'm going to talk about something called tense shifting, how to be conscious of it, and how to make sure you're not making mistakes with the tenses you choose in your writing. Okay, this mini lecture is in 3 parts. A basic review of tenses and grammar, what tense shifting is and how we use it in present, past, and future sentences, and some examples of short paragraphs and dialogues to help you see how tenses are used together to tell stories and explain information. So, let's dive into part 1, a basic review of English tenses. Native English speakers might know these things intuitively, but they might be surprised when they realize they never actually learned these things in school. We can think of English tenses in 3 parts: past, present, and future. Inside these tenses are perfect tense, continuous or progressive tense, and perfect continuous. Let's take a couple minutes and go through the tenses to refresh our mind before we get into the main part of this video's content. Let's start with the present tenses. Simple present tense is used to share facts and things that are always true. We use this tense for schedules and timetables a lot. For example, the bus leaves at 2. She speaks Spanish. Present continuous is used to show that an action or condition is ongoing in the present. For example, I am speaking. You are listening. Present perfect tense is used to express an action or condition that happened at a non-specific point in time in the past. We use this to talk about life experience. For example, I have been to France, or I haven't eaten caviar before. Present perfect continuous is used to express actions or conditions that started in the past and continue to the present. We use durations of time or past points in time with this structure. For example, I have been talking for 1 minute. She has lived in New York City for 3 years. Okay, great. That's present tense. Let's go to past tense now. Simple past tense is used to express actions that started and ended in the past. They're done, complete, finished. We can add a specific point in time to these actions. For example, I ate breakfast at 9 a.m. My coworker stole my coffee. Past continuous is used to show that an action or condition was continuing in the past. We often use this tense to show that 2 actions were happening simultaneously. For example, I was listening to music and studying at the same time. Past perfect is used to show that one action happened before another action. We use this tense to help us express sequences of past actions. For example, I got home at 8 p.m., but I had already eaten dinner. Past perfect continuous is used to express a continuing action or condition in the past. We can use this tense to express a sequence of actions. It's arguably most commonly used to show that a continuing past action was interrupted or changed by another past action. For example, I had been sleeping for just 4 hours when suddenly my alarm went off. Okay, great. Now let's take a quick look at the future tenses. Simple future tense expresses a future action or condition. We can express planned or unplanned actions and hint at when we made our decisions through our grammar choices with this tense. For example, I'm going to a huge party on Saturday. I think I'll have a salad for lunch. Future continuous expresses a future action or condition that will be continuing. We use this to help express our future schedules. For example, sorry, I can't meet you Monday afternoon. I'm going to be teaching a lecture at that time. Future perfect tense is used to express an action that is going to finish between the present moment and some point in the future. For example, by the time I finish this project, I'll have spent $300 on it. Finally, future perfect continuous is used to express an action or condition that is going to be continuing sometime between now and a point in the future. For example, as of this summer, I will have been working at this company for 10 years. All right, that's all 12 tenses. I know that was a lot of information at one time. Let's break these points down and see how we actually use these tenses together. Let's move on to the focus of this video, tense shifting. First, let's talk about what tense shifting is. Tense shifting refers to the way you change tenses in your writing. When we shift tenses, we change from present to future, past to future, etc. We shift the tense of the story or the information from one time frame to another. We use tenses to express when an action happened and the sequence in which multiple actions happened. And not all sentences have changes in tenses. Let's take a look at some basic examples and start with this sentence. Yesterday I went to the store and I bought some milk. There are two clauses in this sentence. 1, yesterday I went to the store, and 2, I bought some milk. The verbs in both clauses are in the past tense. In the first clause, the verb is went. In the second clause, the verb is bought. These past tense verb choices are 100% correct because the story and the actions described are all past tense actions. They're complete. Let's compare this to a sentence that uses verb tenses inappropriately. This is an example of a common mistake in tense shifting. Yesterday, I went to the store that was on the corner of Main Street and First Avenue. Again, in this sentence, we have two clauses. 1, yesterday, I went to the store, and 2, that was on the corner of Main Street and First Avenue. In this example, the verbs in the two clauses are in past tense. In the first clause, the verb is went. In the second clause, the verb is was. This is an example of a common tense shifting error. The writer began the sentence in past tense and used past tense for the second clause too. So why is this incorrect? This is incorrect because past tense is used for completed actions. In the second clause, the writer is describing a general fact, something that is always true. The store's location is a general fact. It doesn't change. We use present tense to express this, not past tense. To fix this sentence, we need to change was in the second clause to is. The sentence therefore becomes, yesterday I went to the store that is on the corner of Main Street and First Avenue. The verb in the first clause is still went because it's telling us about a completed action. The verb in the second clause is now is because it's telling us a fact. We need to be aware of the different verbs we use in the clauses of our sentences. We can't always think of entire sentences with just one tense. It's important to consider the function of each clause and choose the tense accordingly. Okay, next we're going to focus on tense shifting when writing about the past. In this section, I want to talk about a super common writing mistake. This mistake happens when a writer doesn't apply past tense and past perfect tense correctly. Before we look at the example sentence, let's quickly refresh ourselves about simple past and past perfect tenses. We looked at this at the beginning of the video. Past tense is used to talk about a completed action. It's done, it's finished. The action started and ended at some point in the past. We can be specific about when this action happened. Past perfect tense is used to talk about an experience in the past in relation to another past action. This might sound confusing, so another way to understand this is we use past perfect tense to show one past action happened before another. We can use past perfect with the continuous form to show that a past continuing action happened before another past action. Okay, with this in mind, let's take a look at an example sentence that correctly shifts between past tense and past perfect tense. In this case, past perfect continuous. I had been studying in silence for 2 hours when the phone rang. Let's look at the two clauses in this sentence. 1, I had been studying in silence for 2 hours, and 2, when the phone rang. Let's look at the tenses of the verbs. In the first clause, we see had been studying. This is a past perfect pattern. In this case, a past perfect continuous or progressive action. This shows us a past continuing action. In the second clause, the verb is rang. This is the simple past tense form of ring. In this sentence, the writer correctly shifts from past perfect progressive to simple past tense. Past perfect progressive is used to show the earlier action, in this case, a continuing action. Simple past tense is used to show the action that happened after the first action. This kind of pattern is common. We use past perfect progressive together with simple past tense to describe actions that were stopped or were interrupted in some way. Here's another example. I was nervous when I arrived at the sushi restaurant because I had never eaten raw fish before. Okay, this sentence is a little longer. We actually have 3 clauses to break down here. Let's go one by one. 1, I was nervous. 2, when I arrived at the sushi restaurant. And 3, because I had never eaten raw fish before. The verb in the first clause, I was nervous, is in simple past tense. The verb in the second clause, when I arrived, is also in past tense. These look good because they're both expressing a past condition or past action, and they refer to the same moment in time. In the third clause, we see, I had never eaten. This is a past perfect construction, a negative one. The sentence ends with before. This before means before this experience. This is the reason we have to use past perfect in this clause. It's giving us information about an experience the person had before going to the restaurant. If we imagine it on a timeline, there are 2 conditions this sentence expresses. The writer feeling nervous and arriving at the sushi restaurant, and all the time prior to going to the sushi restaurant, during which the writer did not eat sushi. Some might ask, well, why can't I use present perfect tense here? If I were in that situation, I would say, I have never eaten raw fish before. Yes, exactly. In that moment, you could say to someone, I am nervous because I have never eaten raw fish before. But in this storytelling manner, you are explaining a past action and a past condition. For this reason, we have to use simple past tense and past perfect tense together. Okay, let's take a look at an example that incorrectly shifts past tenses and break down how to fix it. She had been working all day when her boss had emailed her a new task. First, let's break down the clauses. 1, she had been working all day. And 2, when her boss had emailed her a new task. In the first clause, we see a past perfect progressive construction with had been working. This shows us a past action that was continuing. In the second clause, we see had emailed, a past perfect construction. Remember, we use past perfect to show past actions in relation to other past actions. Here, both of the clauses use past perfect constructs, and that means the sentence doesn't tell us which action came first and which action came second. We have to fix one of the clauses. Logically, we can guess that the verb in the second clause happened after the condition in the first clause. We fix the sentence so it looks like this. She had been working all day when her boss emailed her a new task. There are 2 key points I hope you take away from this section. 1, if you're writing about 2 past tense actions, use simple past tense for the action that happened closer to the present. Use past perfect constructions to show actions that happened before the simple past tense action. And 2, don't stick to past perfect tense just because you started the sentence with it. Think about the sequence of actions. Okay, let's move on to the opposite side of the timeline and talk about this same concept with sentences that use future tense. All right, lastly, let's talk about the future and how we can be aware of our tenses here. We just talked about how we use simple past tense and past perfect tense to show the relationship between 2 past actions or conditions. We can do the same thing with future tense. Let's start by looking at an example. Let's imagine it's part of a text message exchange between parents. Mom is coming home late from a work event, and Dad has ordered a pizza to share with her when she gets home. Mom is worried about the kids eating late. Dad sends her this message. Our pizza is going to arrive at 10 p.m. The kids will have fallen asleep already. Okay, let's break down the clauses. 1, our pizza is going to arrive at 10 p.m. And 2, the kids will have fallen asleep already. In the first clause, we have a simple future tense construction, going to arrive. In the second clause, we have a future perfect tense construction, will have fallen asleep. The verb choices in these clauses are correct. The first clause shows us a point in time for a future action, in this case 10 p.m. when the pizza arrives. The second clause shows us another action that will be complete by the time the action in the first clause happens. Remember, we use future perfect tense to show that something will happen by a point in time in the future. So this sentence looks good. Here's an important note. Future perfect tense is very commonly used along with by the time constructions. For example, by the time you finish this video, you'll have learned a lot about tense shifting. This sentence follows the same pattern we saw in the previous example sentence, but you might notice that there doesn't seem to be a simple future tense construction in the first clause. It just says, by the time you finish. A common mistake when shifting tenses in future tense situations is to include will in the by the time construction. For example, sometimes we see by the time you will in the first clause. This is a mistake. Including will here is incorrect. When you use by the time constructions, use simple present tense verb patterns. This is a set pattern for this expression. Here are a couple more examples. By the time he finishes university, he'll have been studying for 16 years. We'll have spent $3,000 on our home remodel by the time the construction company finishes everything. The key point for this section is to make sure not to use going to or will when you use by the time patterns. Okay, great. There's an overview of the concepts of tense shifting in present, past, and future tenses. Let's go to the last part of this video and take a look at how we actually apply these concepts when writing paragraphs and when writing dialogue. So we've talked about the tenses of English, and we've explored how we shift tenses in a single sentence. Next, let's look at how we shift tenses in a paragraph. Let's use this paragraph as an example. I met up with a few friends last night and stayed out a little later than normal. I tried to call my parents to let them know I was on the way home, but my phone battery had died. I always tell my parents if I'm a little late because I know that if I don't, my mom will worry about me. That night, when I got home, my mom was pretty upset. Let's break down the verbs in these sentences. First sentence, we see, I met up with friends and stayed out a little later. Both clauses use simple past tense because they're talking about past completed actions. Second sentence, I tried to call and I was on the way are in past tense. These happened at the same past point in time. My phone battery had died uses past perfect and shows us that the battery died before trying to call on the way home. Third sentence, I always tell my parents is in present tense because it's a fact. In I know that if I don't, present tense is used again because this part refers to a condition the writer knows is true. The last clause, my mom will probably worry about me, is making a guess about the future, so will worry is used, simple future tense. Fourth sentence, when I got home and my mom was pretty upset, both use past tense because they refer to a past action and past condition that were true at the same past point in time. When I got home, my mom was upset. Same point in time. Great! Hopefully this helped illustrate how we change between tenses as we tell stories. It's quite natural to move between tenses according to the information in the story. There's one other type of writing you'll probably see from time to time. It's called literary present tense. Literary is in the name, so that might give you a big hint about what types of writing it's used in. This style of writing is typically used when talking about literature and fictional stories, but it can also be applied to plays, musicals, movies, and so on. It generally isn't used to talk about actual history, though perhaps it may be used in a retelling of a historical event. In literary present tense, simple present tense is used to explain parts of the story as if they were happening in the moment. For example, in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy is whisked away to a magical land. She meets a lion, a tin man, and a scarecrow. In non-literary writing, we would write, in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy was whisked away to a magical land. She met a lion, a tin man, and a scarecrow. It's a good idea to be aware of this because you'll probably see it when you read entertainment reviews. Okay, the last thing I want to cover in this section is a quick look at how to use tenses when writing dialogue. By dialogue, I mean expressing the things characters and people say in writing. Here's an example. Those cookies are for the party tonight. Don't eat them all, shouted Sarah. I'm just gonna eat a few, mumbled Stephen as he stuffed his face. In this dialogue, the verbs indicating speech, shouted and mumbled, are in simple past tense. The speech inside the quotation marks, however, is a direct representation of the conversation the characters are having in the moment. In this case, Sarah's dialogue includes a simple present tense statement. Those cookies are for the party. And Stephen's reply includes a simple future tense structure. I'm just gonna eat a few. Please keep in mind that dialogue reflects the actual conversation, but the verbs used to report speech are in past tense. Okay, great! Let's recap what we learned in this mini lecture. First, we did a quick refresh of all 12 tenses in English. Applying these tenses correctly will make your writing much clearer and easier to understand for your reader. Second, we looked at what tense shifting is and how you can choose the correct tenses to use in present, past, and future sentences. Third, we looked at examples of tense use in paragraph form and in written dialogue. Awesome! I hope this video helped you get a better understanding of English tenses and how to apply them appropriately in your writing. You can keep an eye out for this when you're reading, too. I hope this helps you to make better choices in your writing. Of course, if this video helped you, you can help me by hitting the like button and sharing this video with any friends that need a little reminder about how to use tenses. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more writing, punctuation, and spelling tips. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Oh man, that was a long video. Did you guys learn something? Paragraphs and dialogue, paragraphs and dialogue. Okay.